Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Spicy day of action in the Call of Duty League. Drama everywhere today and not in the manner that I thought it would be. I thought the pros would be complaining about Minnesota Rokkr, the home series, the LAN advantage cheat, all this type of stuff. But instead, Boston Breach got in the spotlight, refusing to turn off the loudness equalization here on LAN. Remarkable turn of events. Questions raised about potential blacklists and all this stuff as a result of it. Lots of people have their opinions on this. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Let's dive straight into things. First, I just want to say, we discussed earlier today the current state of the CDL, the future state of the CDL. But if there's one organization, and I've said it before, that's actually taken advantage and done a great thing with their local fan base in terms of activations, it's obviously the Minnesota Rokkr. They did a great job here. Look at it, the fans that turned out for this one. Awesome venue as well. And look, they've been cooking up something pretty special lately, the Minnesota Rokkr, in terms of their home series events. The amount of guys that were here look like a fantastic crowd, and yeah, really making the most of what they've been able to do from their city perspective. So really cool to see. And yes, you can look at it through a lens of, the home series cheese advantage, but other teams could have done this. They didn't. Minnesota Rokkr have done, and it's generally just great for the scene to see something like this going on, and hopefully encouraging other teams to do the same in the future. Now, obviously, from a pure competitive integrity perspective, there are some problems with this. The key one that people mention is the fact that they get to play 2 games in one day. Theoretically, by the second game, they're more warmed up. We saw that the first time around that they did it. You could argue, I know that Brett Diamond reached out and said that they actually tried to work with the CDL in such a way that Boston could also play a game. Maybe Boston would have played the second game of the day online though, but in person there at the venue, and would have played, someone else. So at least they could add a game to warm up before they played the Rokkr. So they tried to find a compromise where this could work. Eventually, it just couldn't really work for scheduling reasons. So they had to go into this series, Boston not having warmed up, Minnesota Rokkr just having played a series, and that might be one of the reasons why Boston thought they deserved some advantage back in their court, and we'll certainly dive into that in a second. Just quickly on what Dr. Dougley believes in terms of the chances of qualifying for winners. Of course, a few matches have gone down now, so this is a little bit out of date, but still gets the picture across in terms of what the expectations are. Vegas definitely take a step forward here, but firstly, Rokkr versus London. This was a 30-minute series. I mean, I'm not massively surprised. London are a team where those individuals, as unfortunate as it is, playing for their spots next year, to be honest. I don't really think they're massively trying to win. Rokkr win a relatively competitive game 1. They win the game 2 kind of comfortably, and then game 3 was very quickly over. This was the key round here. Afro in a 1 versus 2 against his former team, of course, in London. Hops up here, and yeah, the play from the London guys, they don't, the spacing here is just pretty poor, right? The seam goes in, dies. iLLeY is in a decent position to get the trade, but they're expecting him, they hear him, and they get the killer. Seam was obviously not happy about that one, so just some misplays going down, and look at these reactions here. I mean, Bose couldn't believe it. Scump was just laughing, and Methods had his head in his hands watching them throw away that 1 versus 2, so not the best moment for them, and they go on to lose the game 3 as well. A swift 3-0. This is a bit more competitive in the end, but Rokkr get the job done, and they advance. A quick 3-0 dub. Afro with the 1.26. Nasty man, he was putting the squad on his back. He was doing his best. He has definitely been the shining star from that team so far this season. And I know some would say I'll build around Nasty next year and all this, but maybe there's an argument to say that Nasty to go to another team would be interesting. I know some were mentioning, what about Nasty for Fame? What about like an Afro Fame duo again, and then Bance and Cammy there? That'd be an interesting prospect, and it does seem like when you leave London, somehow you maybe get a bit more impactful. I don't know, it's just a tough time for these players that are stuck on London, but whatever, don't want to talk about them anymore, to be honest. Did want to share this clip though, because I thought a lot of the drama today was going to be around moments like this. We've seen some players the other day talking about how Rokkr are effectively fraudulent for having all these matches, and yes, the pros aren't going to be happy about it. It is some degree of advantage, but their organization could have done it, and it's a bit confusing to me how some of the pros, they talk all this about, oh, online is bad, we want to play on LAN, but when they get the chance to, now they also don't want to do it, right? So I'll just share this perspective from a couple of days ago now, but it actually wasn't the key talking point of the day.
Oh, they have a whole LAN cheese this weekend.
Are you sure you're playing LAN again?
Yeah, they play like Boston and someone else this weekend.
LAN.
Yeah.
Dude, those guys are fraudulent.
Because they're playing matches, online matches on LAN, bro. I'm getting sucked cheese. I'm getting sucked cheese, bro.
I can't believe I lost to that team. Oh my god.
Don't remind me. I just spent a week getting over it.
Wait,
now you want to remind me?
Fucking
Minnesota shitter.
Before we get to Boston though, Vegas Legion, baby, they've actually gone and done it. I thought that after their loss to OpTic, I was really hoping, I said yesterday, right, I hope that they really build off that defeat to OpTic, because as frustrating as it was, Game 5, Round 11 to go down, they did play well in that series against OpTic, and if they played as they did against OpTic against the sublaners, then they could do some damage, and that's exactly what they did. Claysterman was getting into this guy in Game 1. He goes like 34 in 16 or something again, goes double positive Game 1, wins them the game almost by his lonesome, to be honest. I mean, what a game from Clay. Look at the passion, man. I'm telling you, man, this guy is still one of the most, if not the most passionate player in the league, and he is going, I think he's 31 tonight, possibly. So happy birthday to Clay for tomorrow, but it's just such an awesome story, right, what Clay's doing in and out of the game. So Vegas eventually lose Game 2. There were some chances here. They go down, and they win another control. Now, I don't know if this was New York stretching their map pool a bit, because if there's one map so far that Vegas have actually looked respectable on control at, it's Expo, right? So I thought, honestly, ever since they played it twice and won it a little bit ago, that they would just get it banned against them every single series they played. But that's not the case. Subliners play them on it. Vegas win another control, and if, as I say, if Vegas can win 45-50% of controls, like, they will be in a good spot. And Clay was absolutely killing it as usual. He was the key man. It does go to a Game 5 though. Subliners blow them out on Hydro. Big map from Priester. It's kind of funny with Priester, right? He has a few stinkers in terms of maps, and then has a big one that makes you think, oh damn, yeah, Priester's definitely a guy they should keep. Maybe he very well is, but definitely a debate. Now, TJ went massive here towards the end of this, and you got to say fair play to TJ, because we know he's a great player in Search and Destroy. We know that Donny Temp said that he made that poor call to rotate the guys over to B at the end of that Search and Destroy against OpTic, but the same map mode combination, Hotel Search, TJ goes big, 11 in 4 here with a couple of huge rounds. It got a bit sketchy, right, because it was 5-3, and then it was, oh my god, the 5-3 curse for Vegas could happen again, like happened against Florida back at Major 4, but it doesn't this time. They close out the series. Awesome result for Clay and co. I'm back, he says, GG's to New York, and even he goes on to this 31 at midnight and dropping 2.0 KDs on maps against my son Hydra, because we know that at Major 4 there was drama there was beef, right, between Hydra and Clayster, when Hydra said a few words after their defeat, and Clay didn't take it too well. So kind of awesome to see Clay get revenge in this way, and I mean, look at this performance, 92 kills from Clay, slightly behind Hydra's 93 in fairness with a similar KD, but still super impressive. Highest damage in the lobby by far, as you expect from Clay at this point, 1.23 KD. And look, I'm still not convinced Vegas will make champs, but they've given themselves a chance with this series victory like this. They needed to come out of this week 1-1. They've done that. They can progress and move on from here. I'm still not sure they're going to make it, but if Clay's still got the fire as he has, and he's still got the ability, it's not always there, he has his off series, but when he's on, he is incredibly impactful, and I'm sure that other teams higher ranked than Vegas next season, like, for example, Boston were going to sign Clayster, right? That was the conversation, that he was going to go to Boston, but then they decided to keep Methods. I don't think that's been confirmed, but it's been implied by multiple people now that that was on the border of happening, and I think Clay even implied it himself, and I mean, you imagine how good Boston would have been in hindsight, at least, with Clay and that team, with the leadership they needed in these type of questions. So, you know, I'd have liked to see it, but hopefully Clay's going to make the run with these guys as well, or at least just make it competitive, right? We want to see a competitive fight for the World Championship, and Boston also want to see a competitive fight for the World Championship, it seems, because they decided to, this is a remarkable turn of events. I actually couldn't believe this tweet when I came out here from Ben J. Nassim, that Boston have refused to GA sound EQ. So, loudness equalization, it's a setting, you go into your Windows settings, you turn it on, it makes all the other sounds, effectively, in terms of relative sounds, the footsteps become way louder, you can hear everything. You don't need good comms necessarily, or good team play, or, you know, calling in the actual game itself, where you can just hear everyone. So there's certain teams that use that online, and on LAN, the referees go into the games and they disable everything. But for various reasons, they can't get that done so easily online. So in an online setting, the players kind of just use it because 10 points are very valuable, so they just use it, whatever. But you would have thought on a LAN setting here, yes, this is technically an online qualifier, but it's still a LAN match in front of fans, and you would have thought, and Rokkr expected, as London did, to turn it off and play as you would in a LAN environment in just a few weeks' time in Toronto. However, Boston say to Minnesota, no, we're using it, i.e. we believe we have an advantage to be gained for doing so, and we're not going to turn it off, and screw you, effectively. So this is quite the opinion, and I know that Zoom and Ben had their thoughts. I'm certainly on Zoom and Ben's side on this one, where this is a pretty, to me, it's an outrageous decision that, you know, should not really be tolerated, because this is borderline cheating at the very least, and I don't think it should be allowed online, and it certainly shouldn't be allowed on LAN, and to do so when you're literally going to go to LAN in a couple of weeks and play with it off anyway is maybe indicative that they don't believe they're actually that good if they turn it off.
Bro, my issue with it is this, bro. Again, I understand that I understand that people were hustling for points, but I would look at it this way: Boston's going to make champs this year. Let's say completely collapse. I don't understand why you would go into that environment where the crowd is against you, and you're like trying to play a version of the game that you're not going to play when you actually get to land. Like I don't you're just handicapping your team.
Game 5.
I mean, bro, if you're not confident without sound equalization, your team sucks. Your team sucks. Period.
I just think it's stupid.
Like, bro, there's no way they're relying on sound EQ to win matches. Like, that is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. That is just sad, bro. That's sad. I'm actually gonna flame them on the show today. I'm flaming them. I'm flaming them for that. I'm cooking them.
Cooking them.
I think it's one singular match. It's a qualifier match. It's not an event. They're going to be using it. For example, if they were to play tomorrow, they'd have to use it. I don't disagree with them wanting to just keep the qualifiers consistent.
It is technically supposed to be an online match. Yeah, Boston might have agreed to it, whatever the fuck, but it's not like the craziest thing in the world. It's really not. People are going to make it a big deal, but I do think, though, that if they're playing on LAN and they agreed, then they shouldn't use it. But I can also see the argument on why they would want to use it.
I was somewhat surprised to see Scump and Method somewhat defending this, and maybe you can understand why, you know, Clayster, for example, was in defense of this, and you can maybe see why, because he wanted Boston to win, right? Because that helps the Vegas Legion, and there was all this drama, so as Clay says, good for them, it's a dog-eat-dog world out here, no way you're tweeting this. Slasher disagrees, and kind of agrees with what at least my perspective on it is. You guys might disagree in the comments. Good for them, lol. Act like people aren't EQ cheating in the command center, snaking, shooting red diamonds through walls, etc, etc. So Clay makes a fair point. There's many other things that people are abusing about the game. So, you know, people are, maybe the sound EQ comes to the top of the list, but actually maybe it shouldn't do. So thing Slasher says, I'm not acting like nothing, but this is just sad and should be frowned upon, not praised. No integrity in this place. I totally agree with this, right? Like, even if you guys think that, well, you know, it's not as bad as other things, or it's equally as bad as the snaking and all this stuff, like, I don't think there's any world in which this activity should be praised, personally. But it's still very juicy, so Clay comes back and says, why aren't we frowning upon the snakes and the wallbang cheeses? Slasher says, look, I do. Everyone should have stepped up to stop it when I talked about it years ago, but it's now happening. It set a precedent. Nobody stopped Cell when they had the chance, is kind of what he's getting at. And now I'm team with Cell. I'm not going to try that hard, and that probably doesn't think he could really do anything anyway. I don't make the rules. I tried to make the rules and ban snaking without most of the help of other pros. It just became a thing that everybody does. So interesting conversation. And to make this even juicier from my perspective, Awakening tweeted this out back in March, 9th of March 2023, tweeted out loudness equalization with the clown emojis, basically saying that, I forget exactly what the context was at the time, but he must have been talking about, he probably lost a series online and was annoyed about the other team using loudness EQ, whereas now Boston are like the biggest sound merchants in the game. So just to go through the series here, Boston take game 1, it was competitive in the respawns in general, Boston doing their classic Boston thing where they outslay hard. Obviously they had Vivid back in here for Nero, and I do think Vivid is a valuable player for this team, there's no doubt about that. They do lose the Search and Destroy, interestingly enough, because you might argue that the loudness equalization is most impactful there, and in fairness, right, obviously Rokkr also turned it on, you would imagine, so I guess technically it was an even playing field in that sense, but still, Boston probably like it a bit more because they wanted to use it, and also Rokkr, I imagine, was somewhat checked out by, you know, this circumstance even arising. So Rokkr do clutch up here and get the game too, but Crimp, as usual, takes over this control. There was a crazy final round here where Boston didn't even cap the point, they just slayed out a goal of the kills, which is classic Boston Breach team deathmatch behaviour, and then they won the game 4 as well. So obviously Rokkr go down in front of their home crowd. Vegas will be very happy, as are fans, I suppose, of a competitive fight for the final final spot of the World Championship, but it's nonetheless very interesting, right? All sorts of tweets like this about Boston Reach certified, loudest equalization is on, and now, okay, Rokkr 160, Legion 140, so, you know, they're still in with a fight as it presently stands, going 1-1 here, and just look at these numbers, right? Awakening and Beans 1.4, 1.3, like, they're shooting straight, but the argument's going to be there about sound equalization, right? And this was the response. Cammy says, I played bad, but those guys wouldn't take off EQ. Gotta say, fair enough. The frustration. Bance was laughing about it, being like, what are these guys playing at? And then even Fame says, refusing to take off sound EQ at an event is wild. And even Afro echoes a similar thing. I'll never understand the mindset of some of the pros. Boston. Constant complaints about sound EQ, like we saw from Awakening. But when it comes to it, nothing gets done. Bunch of absolute freaks. So, look, I don't disagree with Afro on this, to be honest. I think it's pretty outrageous. Personally, I know that there was this discussion from one of their coaches, B-Sport Josh, who says that they want to play in this match like they're doing practice, which, okay, fair enough, but surely you want to practice how you're playing at an actual proper event, and when you go to LAN in a few weeks and when you go to the World Championship in Vegas, you're going to be playing without EQ, so why not practice in those environments? I simply don't understand it, and, you know, Bance also can understand it in the replies, and even Slasher gave a thought as well. I think it was this tweet from Slasher where he says, best practice possible. Like, what are you talking about, mate? Because, you know, in terms of a LAN environment, you're going to have to play usually without this circumstance. So really interesting stuff. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Lots of drama on this. I know that Bean said here that I'm told to use it by my coaching staff, so maybe don't necessarily blame the players so much, but the coaching staff apparently made the call on this one. And, you know, so anyway, that's their perspective. It's definitely very interesting. Enjoy to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.